My sister slapped me in front of 300 people at her wedding because I wouldn't give up the condo I'd worked 15 years for. I didn't cry, I texted the Tribune and suddenly, phone started buzzing. You know that moment when you realize your entire life has been built on a lie, and the person who pulls the rug out from under you is your own sister? I learned that lesson the hard way at her lavish wedding, when she didn't just try to take my home, she slapped me right in front of 300 witnesses. I was standing alone at the edge of the reception hall, watching my sister, Sierra, float across the dance floor. Her cream-colored gown probably cost more than some people's cars. Everything about that wedding at the Four Seasons Chicago, the crystal chandeliers, the elaborate floral arrangements, just screamed excess. My navy dress felt suddenly plain, almost invisible among all the sequins and designer labels. I adjusted the slim gold bracelet at my wrist, my grandmother's, the only family heirloom I'd ever been given. Sierra threw her head back, laughing as her new husband, Grant, spun her in a practiced waltz. Their movements looked rehearsed, like everything else about this whole production. 300 guests watched and smiled. The perfect couple. The golden child and her investment banker husband. I was just trying to get through it, sipping my champagne, calculating how much longer I had to endure before making a polite escape. 2 hours down, maybe 2 more to go. Then a waiter bumped my arm, champagne splashing onto my dress. He didn't even apologize, just hurried off as if I was the inconvenience. And then my parents, Janet and Leonard Holloway, materialized. Identical, practiced smiles that never quite reached their eyes. My mother leaned in, air-kissing my cheek, careful not to smudge her perfect lipstick. "Renata, darling, you've been hiding in the corner all evening," she cooed. My father gave my shoulder a perfunctory squeeze. "Nice dress," he muttered, already scanning the room for someone more important. And then came the setup. Mother's voice dropped. "Leonard isn't there. Something we needed to discuss with Renata." My stomach seized. That familiar knot. I knew. Nothing good ever followed that line. We moved to a quiet alcove, the music muffled, and my father, without preamble, just blurted it out. "We need to talk about your condo." My condo? The question came out sharper than I intended. And just like that, Mother's practiced smile vanished. "Sierra and Grant need a proper home to start their family," she stated, as if that explained everything. "What does that have to do with my place?" I asked, my voice rising. My father shifted uncomfortably, hands in his pockets. "We think it would be best if you let them have the Lincoln Park property." The words just hung there. I waited for the punchline, for the joke, but it never came. "You want me to give them my condo?" It sounded absurd even as I said it. Mother waved a dismissive hand. "Not give exactly, darling. We'd help you relocate to something more appropriate. We found a nice studio in Cicero," my father added, "closer to the courthouse." My brain actually stumbled. A $1.45 million condo in Lincoln Park, my home. For a studio in Cicero? "You don't need all that space, Renata," my mother said, her voice dripping honey, but her eyes, they were ice. "You're single." That word landed like a physical blow. Single. Childless. Less deserving. For a long moment, I couldn't breathe. The sheer audacity stole my air. This condo is my home. I bought it with my own money, built it after years of 60-hour work weeks and sacrificed vacations. That condo is my home, I finally managed, my voice controlled, despite the fire blazing in my chest. Mother sighed. "It's just rooms and walls, dear." My father chimed in, "Family sacrifices for family," as if reading from some twisted parental handbook I'd never received. "Sierra and Grant need to establish themselves in the right neighborhood." I spotted Judge McAllister across the room, watching our conversation with undisguised interest. Other guests were starting to notice the tension. And then Sierra appeared, champagne glass in hand, her voice deliberately louder than necessary. "Is something wrong?" Grant hovered behind her, looking distinctly uncomfortable. Your sister is being difficult, my mother. Stage whispered. Some things never change. Sierra's eyes narrowed, fixing on me with that practice disdain I knew so well. Again, Renata? Can you just be happy for me for once without making everything about you? Several heads turned. I saw Carolyn Davis from my law firm, eyebrows practically touching her hairline. You've always been jealous, Sierra continued, her voice rising. Remember when she skipped my college graduation, Mom? Or when she screamed at Dad over a tuition check? The whispers spread like wildfire, half-truths twisted into a character assassination. But something inside me, after years of bending, just snapped. My home is not yours to demand, I said, quietly, but with a new kind of steel. Sierra's face transformed. The perfect bride vanished, replaced by something ugly and raw. Her arm moved so fast I didn't have time to react. The sharp crack of her palm against my cheek echoed through the sudden silence of the ballroom. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Someone chuckled nervously. Others just stared, utterly shocked. My hand flew to my burning cheek. I looked past Sierra to my parents. My mother's lips curled into a subtle smirk. My father shrugged, indifferent, his eyes already drifting toward the bar. Not one family member stepped forward in my defense. Not one. The sting bloomed across my cheek like wildfire, but in that moment, standing surrounded by 300 witnesses to my humiliation, something inside me didn't just turn to steel. It became a sharpened blade. My lawyer brain clicked into gear, cataloging witnesses, assessing the situation with chilling clarity. Sierra's triumphant smile began to falter. Her eyes darted around the room, and the enormity of what she'd just done, in front of Chicago's legal and business elite, finally dawned on her. Her wedding dress, a symbol of perfection moments ago, suddenly looked too tight, too bright, like a costume she'd outgrown in the space of a heartbeat. My father rushed over, whispering urgently, "Let's discuss this somewhere private." He reached for my elbow, but I planted my feet firmly on the marble floor. No, that single word carried more weight than any legal argument I'd ever crafted. Leonard's face reddened. He wasn't used to direct refusal, especially not from me. "Stop making a scene," my mother hissed, her diamond earrings catching the light as she leaned closer. "This is Sierra's day." Across the room, Judge McAllister watched, no longer just interested, but with undisguised concern. Our eyes met, and I saw something I never expected: respect. He gave an almost imperceptible nod. Then, my father tried another tactic. "If you give them the condo," he whispered conspiratorially, "we'll invite you home for Christmas. No more awkward holidays." The words hit harder than Sierra's slap. A casual admission that my exclusion from family gatherings had been deliberate all along. Not an oversight, not scheduling conflicts, deliberate. Christmas flashed back to me, last year, alone in my condo, watching the city lights, my Merry Christmas. Text unanswered while their Instagram filled with photos of turkey, presents, and Sierra opening earrings that cost more than my first car. "We always hoped you'd understand family priorities," my mother added, her voice honeyed poison. I didn't cry. I didn't raise my voice. Instead, my fingers reached for my clutch movements. Precise, unhurried. My phone felt substantial in my hand, anchoring me to this moment that would change everything. My thumb moved across the screen, dialing, then typing. The message was simple, direct, no embellishment needed. My family demanded I give up my home. My sister slapped me. 180 guests laughed. I selected the recipients carefully, my law partners. Judge McAllister, the Chicago Tribune reporter who interviewed me last month. Send. A soft click nearby. A young woman in a midnight blue cocktail dress lowered her phone, meeting my gaze with a small nod. The video of Sierra's assault, already captured. Already moving through the digital veins of Chicago society. Across the ballroom, phones began to chime and vibrate. A soft symphony of notification pings rippled through the crowd. Sierra's smile finally faltered as she noticed her friends hunched over their screens, whispering urgently. "What's happening?" she stammered to Grant, whose face had gone pale as he checked his own phone. My mother, in a desperate attempt to control the narrative, moved with surprising speed toward the 5-tier wedding cake, clapping her hands for attention. "Everyone, it's time for the cake cutting. Gather around, please." Her voice rang with forced cheerfulness, but fewer than half the guests responded. Leonard cornered two of his biggest clients, his hand gestures growing increasingly animated as they backed away, making excuses. Judge McAllister caught my eye again, gathering his coat. He paused a respectful distance from me. "Miss Holloway," he said quietly, "I look forward to seeing you in court next week." Mundane words, but his tone conveyed volumes. A gentle acknowledgement of my dignity. "Thank you, Your Honor," I replied, my voice steadier than I expected. I turned toward the coat check, my movements measured, deliberate. No rushing. No fleeing. My grandmother's bracelet caught the light as I gathered my wrap. 300 people watched as I collected my belongings with the same care I bring to preparing case files. Sierra appeared at my elbow, her perfect makeup now slightly smudged. "What did you just do?" she whispered, panic edging her voice. I met her eyes directly. I simply told the truth. The words hung between us, solid and immovable. No drama, no shouting, just fact. She opened her mouth, then closed it. For perhaps the first time in her life, Sierra had nothing to say. I walked toward the exit back. Straight, pace unhurried. Behind me, the festive bubble of the reception had utterly deflated. Conversations stuttered and stopped. Music played to a half-empty dance floor. The carefully orchestrated celebration had fallen apart like a house built on sand. The doorman nodded respectfully. Outside, the November air felt clean against my burning cheek. A taxi pulled up immediately, almost as if orchestrated by fate. "Lincoln Park, please," I told the driver. As we pulled away from the Four Seasons, I didn't look back. Some chapters close, without ceremony. Some battles are won without raising your voice. In the reflection of the window, I saw a woman I barely recognized. Someone who had finally stopped bending. 40 minutes later, my keycard clicked in the lock of my Lincoln Park condo, and I stepped inside, letting the heavy door close behind me with a satisfying thud. Chicago's skyline twinkled. Through my floor-to-ceiling windows, a constellation of lights against the night sky. I stood for a moment in the darkness of my entryway, breathing in the familiar scent of lemon furniture, polish, and the faint aroma of the morning's coffee. Home. My home. I flipped the switch and warm light flooded the space, illuminating the life I'd built plank by plank, the Italian marble countertops I splurged on after winning the Harrington case, the leather sectional where justice. My cat, now stretched lazily, completely unimpressed by my dramatic entrance, the wall of law. Books, not for show like the leather-bound classics in my father's study, but worn at the spines. From actual use. My fingers trailed along the bookshelf. Constitutional law. Contract precedents. Women's rights legislation. Each volume represented hours of study, of work, of building. Something no one could take from me. They want this. Justice, I told my cat, who blinked slowly in response. They think they can just snap their fingers and I'll hand over the keys. I caught my reflection in the window. The mark on my cheek had faded from angry red to a dull pink, but it was still visible, a badge of humiliation. I touched it gently, feeling the heat that lingered there. My phone, which I'd silenced in the cab, buzzed insistently in my purse. When I finally fished it out, the screen was alive with notifications. Dozens of texts, missed calls, email alerts, social media, notifications. The first text was from Carolyn at the firm. "Are you okay? Video going viral. Call me." Video? I scrolled through my messages with increasing disbelief. The Chicago Tribune had already reached out for comment. 3 judges' clerks I knew personally had sent supportive messages. Even the managing partner at my old firm had texted a simple, "Whatever you need, we have your back." With shaking fingers, I opened the link Carolyn sent. There it was. Sierra's palm connecting with my cheek, the sound crisp even on my phone speaker. The camera angle perfectly captured my parents in the background, mother's subtle smirk, father's indifferent shrug. 300 witnesses, and now thousands more. "Wedding assault on prominent attorney," screamed the headline from the Chicago Legal Times. My phone began ringing again, a number I didn't recognize. Probably another reporter. I silenced it, dropped the phone onto the couch. The memory rose unbidden. Myself at 16. Working weekends at Millie's Diner while my classmates went to football games. The greasy smell that clung to my clothes. The burns on my fingers. "We're so proud of how responsible you are," my mother had said, taking the check I handed her. Sierra's private school tuition just went up. Again. I remembered the precise amount, $4,327, every penny I'd saved that summer. The same summer my father took credit for my clerkship with Judge Brennan. I put in a good word, he'd told his colleagues, patting my shoulder. I hadn't corrected him. I'd secured that position through a blind application process. I walked to the kitchen and poured myself a glass of water. The memory shifting to my law school graduation, the empty seats where my parents should have been. Sierra's fashion show was scheduled months ago, my mother had explained. "You understand, don't you? Your sister really needs our support right now." I always understood. I always accepted. I always gave. I took a shower and went to sleep. Tomorrow was D-Day. I would not keep my mouth shut anymore. Next morning, my phone buzzed with an email. Subject: Statement from Amber Wave, PR, regarding Sierra Holloway. I opened it, curious despite myself. Amber Wave Public Relations had placed Sierra Holloway on immediate administrative leave pending investigation. Zero tolerance for violence in any context. The glass nearly slipped from my hand. Another notification. Grant's real estate brokerage was investigating his involvement. My colleague Martin had sent a firm-wide email expressing full support for me. The Women's Legal Alliance wanted to share my story. It was happening so fast. The consequences I never saw it, but perhaps in some corner of my soul, always wanted recognition of the pattern I'd endured for decades. Sacrifice demanded. Never acknowledged. How different our lives turned out. Sierra with her Instagram following and PR job, a carefully curated image funded by parental support and my silent contributions. Me, with my law degree and my practice, built dollar by difficult dollar, case by challenging case. My phone rang again, my building's security desk. "Miss Holloway, there's someone here. Insisting on seeing you. Says she's your sister." My heart jumped, but my voice remained steady. "I don't want to see her." I walked to my security monitor and pressed the button to view the lobby camera feed. The image that appeared stopped my breath. Sierra, swaying slightly in old jeans and a stained blouse, a cap pulled low, her makeup smeared into dark rivers. Her perfectly arranged hair now hung in loose strands. "Please," her voice crackled through the intercom. "Renata, I know you're there. I didn't mean it. Help me fix this." The contrast was stark, the radiant bride of yesterday reduced to this desperate figure. My finger hovered over the intercom button. "Grant is furious. Dad isn't answering his phone. Mom keeps crying. Please, I need your help. You always know how to fix things." I watched her silently. The golden child. The favorite. Now looking up at my camera with pleading eyes. "Renata, please say something." "I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. We don't need your stupid condo. Just help me make this go away." My hand fell away from the intercom. I pressed the button that turned off the security monitor, plunging the screen into darkness. In the sudden silence of my home, Justice jumped onto the counter, purring softly. I scratched behind his ears, listening to the quiet of my sanctuary. "Not today," I whispered to no one in particular. Maybe not ever. The next morning, my phone buzzed me awake at 5:30 a.m. Not my alarm, but hundreds of notifications cascading across my screen. Text messages from law school friends I hadn't spoken to in years. LinkedIn notifications. Email alerts from news outlets. The subject line from the Chicago Tribune stopped my breath. Attorney assaulted at sister's wedding after refusing to surrender home. I sat up, fully awake now. Justice stretched beside me, oblivious to how our world had shifted. Saw the video. Are you okay? From Judge McAllister. That was assault. Clear as day from Caroline at the firm. Your sister just lost 10,000 followers in 12 hours from my paralegal Beth. I pulled up Sierra's Instagram. Precipitous drop. Comments on her wedding photo. Disabled. Her perfect day narrative, crumbling. My phone rang. I declined it. Another immediately took its place. I switched to Do Not Disturb as I padded to the kitchen for coffee. While the coffee brewed, I checked my email. Grant's firm sent a public statement announcing an ethics inquiry. Leonard's largest architecture client postponed their meeting. Janet's Country Club issued a formal membership review. The Holloway's carefully constructed social facade was cracking. One slap had revealed everything hiding beneath the surface. My phone lit up again. Janet's name. The first of what became a cascade of increasingly frantic messages. This is being blown out of proportion. You need to clarify what happened. We're family, Renata. Your father and I expect you to fix this. Then Leonard, our attorney, will be in touch about defamation. I forwarded his message to our litigation team. Their response came within minutes, a meticulously drafted letter reminding Leonard that truth is an absolute defense and his communication could be construed as witness intimidation. No further legal threats materialized. Sierra's voicemails alternated between tearful apologies and accusations. I'm sorry I lost my temper, followed by, you've always been jealous of me. Grant called once. Renata, I've been looking at properties. I could find you an even better condo. Better view, better everything. I didn't respond to any of them. At 7, Caroline knocked on my office door. A few of us are having dinner at Miller and Connie's. Nothing fancy, just support. I almost declined, out of habit, then reconsidered. Give me 10 minutes to finish this brief. The restaurant was warm, intimate. 6 of my colleagues raised their glasses as I joined them, not to make a spectacle, but to acknowledge something important had shifted. My phone buzzed with new messages, not family this time, but former clients. Your integrity helped me fight for my business. Now I see you fight for yourself. Thank you. You taught me to stand firm when everyone wanted me to back down. Watching you do the same, wow. A message from a second-year law student. Your stand against family financial abuse inspired me. I'm doing my thesis on family property rights. Women I'd never met were sharing similar stories of exploitation, thanking me for making their private struggles visible. I looked around at the table of colleagues who'd become friends, at the messages from a community I didn't realize I had built, at the life I'd created through my own efforts. For the first time, I understood that family isn't just what you're born into. It's what you choose, what you build, what you protect, and sometimes, what you refuse to surrender. 3 days later, I straightened the folders on the conference table for the 3rd time. Each one contained identical documentation, bank statements, email printouts, text messages, even holiday cards addressed to me that were never sent. The undeniable evidence of years spent as an afterthought in my own family. My law partner, Elaine, touched my shoulder. They're here. Want me to stay? Please, I said, my voice steady despite the flutter in my stomach. And ask Marcus to join us. The receptionist showed my parents into our firm's main conference room. They hesitated at the doorway. Mother's hand fluttered to her pearl necklace. Father's eyes darted around, taking in the sleek furniture and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Michigan Avenue. Renata, Mother stepped forward, arms outstretched as if this were a social call. This is all Been such a misunderstanding. I remained seated. Thank you for coming. Would either of you like water? They exchanged glances, completely thrown off by my formality. Father cleared his throat. We don't need refreshments. We need to discuss this circus you've created. Please sit. I gestured to the chairs across from me, not beside me. They settled awkwardly as Elaine and Marcus entered, introducing themselves as my partners. Mother's smile turned brittle. Father's jaw clenched. Is this really necessary? Mother asked. Having your colleagues present for a family matter. This stopped being just a family matter when Sierra slapped me in front of 300 people. Father leaned forward. About that. The video has been taken completely out of context. Sierra was emotional on her wedding day. You know how sensitive she is. And you've always been one to hold grudges, Mother added, her voice honey over glass. You could end this right now, with a simple statement that it was all exaggerated. I tilted my head. Exaggerated how? The slap was recorded. Dozens of witnesses heard your demand that I surrender my home. For heavens. Sake, Renata, Father's voice rose. We've been telling everyone at the club that you're going through some sort of breakdown. People are sympathetic. Just let us help you walk this back. I folded my hands on the table. And what would I get in return for this public recantation? Mother brightened, sensing an opening. We'd forgive you, of course. Christmas at the house this year. Your place back in the family. That's what you've always wanted, isn't it? The question hung there. Years ago, it might have worked. Today, I simply reached for the folders. Before we discuss any kind of statement, I'd like to show you something. I slid a folder across the polished surface. Father flipped it open impatiently, then froze. The first document showed my payments towards Sierra's college tuition. $70,000 over 4 years, I explained. The second is an email where you, Dad, took credit for connecting me with Judge McAllister, though he was actually my law professor. Mother's face paled as she peered at the contents. Where did you get these? I've kept records. Force of habit. I tapped the next page. Here are 3 years of holiday invitations that were supposedly lost in the mail. And my personal favorite, your text messages, Mom, dismissing my firm's opening as playing at being a lawyer while you spent $30,000 on Sierra's wedding dress. The room fell silent except for the soft rustle of papers. Marcus and Elaine sat perfectly still, professional witnesses to this family autopsy. You had no right to compile this dossier. Father's voice had lost its authority. I had every right, I countered, my voice level, just as I have every right to set terms for any future relationship between us. Mother's eyes widened. Terms? Yes. First, I require a public apology for the events at the wedding. Second, I expect basic respect for my property and career choices. Third, family therapy before any holidays or reunions. And finally, my condo is never to be discussed as something available for Sierra or anyone else. Father stood abruptly. This is outrageous. You don't dictate terms to your parents. We raised you, gave you everything. Did you? I remained seated, my voice level. Look at the financial records again. Notice who supported whom. How dare you? His face flushed crimson. After everything we've done, you've always been difficult, always the problem child. Sierra was. Right, you're jealous of her happiness. The mask finally slipped. Mother no longer bothered to dab at manufactured tears. Real ones spilled down her cheeks, smearing her carefully applied makeup. You'll regret this, Father hissed. When you're alone with your precious condo and your cold legal briefs instead of family, you'll regret this. I studied him, seeing clearly the man behind the patriarch facade. I would have helped you, I said. I really would have. If you had asked with respect instead of entitlement, I would have found them a place, loaned them money, used my connections. But you assumed ownership of what's mine, just as you always have. Mother stood, collecting her purse with trembling hands. Come, Leonard, she said. She's made her choice. They moved toward the door. The once powerful parents suddenly diminished in the space of my creation. Renata, mother, paused at the threshold. For a moment, I saw something genuine. In her eyes, confusion, perhaps even regret, but she simply straightened her jacket and followed father out. The heavy glass door swung shut behind them. The family facade, maintained for decades, lay in ruins. Elaine squeezed my shoulder. You okay? I nodded, gathering the scattered evidence of a lifetime of small betrayals. Better than okay, I answered, surprised to find it was true. For the first time in 35 years, I felt like I could breathe. 6 months have passed since the wedding. 6 months since everything changed. I stand in the doorway of what used to be my home office, watching sunlight stream through the newly installed floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. What do you think, Miss Holloway? The carpenter asked, adjusting his tool belt. Those recessed lights really showcase your law collection. Perfect, I said, my fingers trailing along the smooth cherry wood. And please, call me Renata. He nodded, packing his tools. The space bore no resemblance to the sterile office where I once drafted contracts. Until midnight. Now, a round conference table occupied the center, surrounded by comfortable chairs. A small refrigerator stood stocked with water and snacks. The walls, once bare, now displayed framed photographs of courthouse architecture from across America. The space I supposedly didn't need had found its purpose. Across the hall, in the guest bedroom, fresh linens adorned twin beds. A small desk sat beneath the window overlooking Lake Michigan. Tomorrow, Amelia Aravisa, a second-year law student from Northwestern, would arrive. She couldn't afford Chicago summer housing while she interned at the public defender's office. My phone buzzed with a text from Caroline, my office manager. 3 more inquiries about property dispute consultations. Your calendar is fully booked. Time to hire another associate. I smiled, texting back, start interviews next week. What began as a single pro bono case had transformed into the fastest growing practice area at my firm. Family, property rights and boundaries now took up half our billable hours. Women like me, professionals, whose families viewed their success as community property, sought me out after hearing about what happened at Sierra's wedding. The Chicago Legal Times profile last month called me the city's premier advocate for financial boundaries within families. The dean at Northwestern Law invited me to create a seminar on ethical family relationships for next spring. My phone buzzed again, a reminder about tonight's support group. The Circle of 8 met monthly in a quiet room above a bookstore in Wicker Park, adult children of manipulative parents. When Dr. Freeman first suggested it, I'd laughed. Now, I couldn't imagine missing a session. Last month, I finally shared the full wedding story. The relief of speaking those words aloud to people who truly understood swept through me like a physical force. Margaret, a retired teacher, hugged me afterward. You stood your ground without becoming bitter. That's the hardest part. I checked my watch. 2 hours until I met Sierra at Sawyer's Cafe. Our 3rd coffee since her apology. Each meeting slightly less awkward than the last. Her first words, delivered on a park bench 3 months ago, still echoed. I've been thinking about why I hit you. It wasn't about the condo. It was because you finally said no. I'd chosen a response that honored both truth and possibility. I'm willing to try again, but with real boundaries this time. The doorbell rang. My neighbor Judith stood outside with a stack of mail delivered by mistake. We chatted briefly about the building association meeting. As she turned to leave, she paused. Your headache's better? You're standing taller these days. I blinked, surprised. They are, actually. Haven't had one in weeks. After she left, I caught my reflection in the hallway mirror. My shoulders rested easy, pulled back rather than hunched forward. The permanent furrow between my eyebrows had softened. Dr. Freeman had pointed it out last session. Your body believes you're safe now. Later that evening, after returning from coffee with Sierra, a meeting where we managed actual laughter over a shared childhood memory, I stood at my living room window watching Chicago light up for the night. My chosen family would gather here tomorrow. Colleagues, friends, Dr. Freeman, even Judge McAllister, who'd become a mentor. The doorbell chimed. Amelia stood outside with her suitcase and backpack, looking exhausted from her bus journey from Michigan. Sorry I'm early, she said, uncertainty in her voice. The bus schedule changed. My hand brushed the doorframe, feeling its solidity beneath my fingers. This threshold that my parents thought I should surrender. This space they believed I had no right to claim. Welcome, I told her, stepping aside. This space was always meant for something meaningful.